Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is going virtual, best practices in delivering online workshops. It will be presented by Lynn Wilson. My name is Alyssa Atkins, and today I will be your webinar facilitator. I am the Training and Development Coordinator for the Native Learning Center. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This webinar provides a summary of fundamental concepts, requirements, and/or procedures within the allotted 90 minutes. The material discussed does not illustrate all possible scenarios that could be applicable. Before we get started, I want to familiarize you with some of the features available and how the environment works. If you look at the top of your screen, you will see an icon of either a person with their hand raised or just a hand. With that icon, you can either raise hand, agree, disagree, or step away. Now your screens should look similar to this graphic here. To the bottom left, you will see a box that says Files. Here you will find today's presentation. Please feel free to download a copy for yourself. Simply click the item you would like to download, then click the arrow pointing downwards to download and save onto your device. Once the item is downloaded, it should appear in your device's download section. And today we also have a PDF below another PDF below the original PDF under the files. So there are two handouts today. The second box labeled Web Links is where you will find out our survey about today's webinar, along with any other links that will be seen throughout today's presentation. Finally, to the right of the screen, we have a chat box available. This is how you will communicate with the instructor and myself. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to interact by using the chat box. Simply type your message and hit enter or click that up arrow icon button to submit. Tech support issues should also be submitted here. Know that most can be solved by exiting and re-entering the meeting room. Let's all try out the chat box together now by typing in your name and where you're joining us from and your tribal affiliation. With that being said, while everyone is typing away, I would like to introduce Lynn Wilson. The webinar platform is all yours, Lynn.
All right. Well, it's not giving me the option to turn my camera back on. I mean, no big deal. Oh, wait, here we go. There you go. Okay. That's what's going on. All right, share. Okay. This is just crazy though, you guys. Like, we just had the guys here cutting hay this morning. And like, seriously, as soon as Awissa started talking, like I looked out the window and not only are there a ton of buzzards putting on a show outside, but a bald eagle just showed up. He is so cool. He's like out there circling and dipping. And anyway, I'm like, no, the webinar can't be started. Watching. Anyway, I had to close my curtains because I'm like, if I see that bald eagle out there swooping around outside my window, I'm going to be really distracted. Which, geez, in virtual trainings, imagine that. Easy to get distracted. Okay. All right. Well, let me see if I can pull my thoughts together here. Seriously, I'm like so excited over that. So I think Awissa just asked everybody if they could type into the chat where they're coming from. Yeah. So if you just kind of, what I would like to know is what state you're from. So if you haven't put your state in there, then please go ahead and type that into the chat. And I see, oh, we have someone that's here in Tahlequah where I'm at. Who was that, Robin? I don't know if you and I know each other. Pamela. Anyway, hey, Pam. I'm just over here in Holbert, just a few miles away from you. Okay. All right. So I'm really glad that to have everyone here today. I'm not going to lie. Like, I have been nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs over this presentation. I was telling my coworkers about it and they're like, why are you nervous? It's like, well, you know, it's one thing when you, like, I deliver virtual training all the time. I said, but now today I'm going to have to deliver a virtual training on best practices when you're delivering virtual training. So that's a lot of pressure to put on someone. So yeah, I'm kind of nervous about it, but I'm super excited you guys are here. And I know that you're going to walk away with some really great tips on how you can improve your own presentation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera off for the remainder, and then I might pop back in to be live on person with you guys here in a little bit. Okay, so what are we going to learn today? Today, we're going to talk about several things that are really challenging when it comes to delivering virtual training. Planning the virtual training out, all the bandwidth issues that you have, trying to figure out what the right method of training is going to be, engaging people and keeping them interested in what you're presenting about. And then also recruiting and retaining attendance, because man, I mean, I thought that delivering live classes was hard and getting people to show up. Virtual trainings have been so much harder. That I'm sure many of you have learned. Okay, so let's, dive a little bit deeper into why we're doing this today. It's because virtual training is so challenging. For the past 20 years, educational institutions, companies, different like nonprofit organizations, we've all used online training to generate things like sales leads, to conduct training, to launch new products. So online training's been here for a really, really long time. But although virtual training has been here, for over 20 years, many of you probably didn't engage all that much in virtual training, either as a participant or as a presenter, until our ways of working and sharing dramatically dramatically changed back in 2020. And, we were all caught off guard, right? And we had no choice but to adapt. So everyone, I think, understands how challenging virtual training can be. Now, it's challenging to deliver content virtually, and it requires you to deliver information with very few tools that you can use to help your learners understand the material and be actively engaged in the process. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and assume that probably several of you in the class today are familiar with the organization OESTA. And if you have ever been to an OESTA training, I guarantee that you did not just sit around and listen to one of their trainers talk all day. OESTA trainers are amazing at incorporating experiential learning into their training by using games and exercises. In fact, I would say that whenever I attended one of their trainings, probably 50% of their training used experiential learning, because it's an extremely powerful tool to get people engaged and help them retain information. Now, imagine losing the ability to do all of that in your training, and what are you left with? Well, what most of us has come to realize, you're left with one presenter who's usually just talking. And no wonder it's so easy for people to get distracted whenever they're in a webinar or some kind of virtual training. So you know what I'm saying. It can be really painful for the participant. And trust me, it can also be very painful for the presenter as well. Now, if having fewer tools to engage participants isn't bad enough, we also face a lot of diminished nonverbal communication, which is very important, right? Whenever we're communicating with other people. So I want you to do something. You see that chat box down there? Type into that chat box and give me an amen if you have ever delivered a virtual training and felt like you were just simply talking to a brick wall. I cannot be the only one. I need some amens. There we go. All right, thank you. Oh, you know what? I'm going to share a little trick with you. Actually, that I used to do. I don't do it anymore because I've gotten pretty good at training myself to look at the webcam. But whenever I started doing virtual trainings, one thing I would do is I would tape a picture of my family right underneath my webcam. So that way, whenever I was presenting, it helped me keep my eyes on the webcam, and helped me feel like I was actually talking to human beings. So I know that sounds kind of goofy, but I have a lot of those little goofy things that I learned to do, that just kind of helps put me at ease and makes it easier on me. So I don't know. If you find it difficult to sit and stare at a webcam, you might just give that a try. Now, like myself, many of you probably work for a business or an organization where a key component of your services is going to include training. And if you can't deliver training in person, guess what? You have no choice but to embrace virtual training. And so although we've made it, through that really difficult time and we can return to doing in-person training, what's happened? Well, the world really got used to the simplicity of being able to open their laptops from their home office, or like my coworker Camille from her lounge chair while she's camping at the lake, instead of spending all that money and time going to in-person training and having to travel. So it's here to stay. And what I say is just really embrace it as an opportunity to learn new skills. There are some benefits to it, like you can present in your pajama bottoms and kind of hide the 40 pounds that you've gained over the past few years. Okay, so I'm kind of curious. I want to know, like, how does everyone feel about their ability to deliver virtual trains? So Awista, oh good, you've launched the poll. So Awista has launched a poll, and if you don't mind, take a second to answer that. I'm just kind of curious how everyone feels about it themselves personally. Okay, awesome. Well, this is exactly what I expected. Whoever the virtual training rock star is, please do not identify yourself. Although I'm going to probably guess by looking at the list, it might be Russ Siegel because he is an awesome presenter. I know I've been in some of his webinars. He did one for us not too long ago. He's amazing. But, for the most part, we can, most of us can do better. It's really hard and it takes a long time and a lot of practice and a lot of planning in order to do virtual training really well. So thank you guys for sharing that information with me. Russ. Yeah, well, all of us has room for improvement, but I have to say you're really, really good. Okay. Now, when coordinating and conducting virtual training, there is a lot of planning and steps that need to take place to make sure that everyone gets their needs met. What does this mean? It means that participants should leave with the knowledge that they need. It means the presenters really need to feel good about the time and the effort that they put into delivering that training. And if you're like us, your business or organization, they need to know that they have achieved, that desired outcome, whether it be sales leads, number of participants attended, whatever the metric is. So you realize that there are three, different stakeholders in these virtual trainings. So the participants, the presenter, and the hosting organization. So give me a thumbs up. I think you have that option to do thumbs up here. If you have ever been in one of these three positions and attended a virtual training that did not provide you the value that you expected. Okay, I got at least one there from Dottie. And Russ, Taylor, yeah, it happens. And unfortunately, one of those may have been the presentation that I gave. So I certainly have given some bad ones in my time. I will be the first to admit that. Well, I bet you that the number one cause of not getting the value that you expected out of a virtual training was really the result of poor planning and preparation. Now, I got to tell you, I have put a lot of effort planning and preparing for this webinar. So, although I admitted to being nervous, I'm really confident that you're going to leave today with a lot of best practices that you're going to be able to put into place to make your virtual training better. But the number one best practice that I want you to leave with today, if nothing else, is to remember that most of the success from your virtual training is going to come from planning and preparing beforehand. Now, at my organization, the IDRS Acorn Project, we have coordinated and conducted hundreds of webinars and virtual classes since 2016. So like back in 2020, when all of that happened, we were actually kind of ahead of the curve, from most people because we had already been doing it quite a bit. And, since 2016, I'll tell you, we've had some really great webinars and we've had our share of bad ones too. The webinars that always turned out great seem really to be that those were the trainings that we really planned and prepared for. Now, we are a very, very small organization. We only have 3 staff members, which includes our executive director. And so with a small staff, we don't have that luxury of having like a dedicated staff member who's in charge of managing our virtual training. The planning and the preparation of virtual training is something that all 3 of us are always involved in. And the roles and responsibilities that each of us have during the training changes all the time according to our schedules. It's like whoever is available, they're going to have to do certain things. And so we switch around a lot. And as our virtual training has evolved, really the most helpful thing that we've done is to develop a task list. And that task list includes everything that we need to do from start to finish to make sure that we are going to deliver the best training possible. And what I have on the slide here are the major areas that our task list is divided into. So there's, everything that we have to all the information we have to collect about the presenter and from the presenter, everything that we need, all the steps we need to do to set it up, like, actually creating it in the webinar platform, marketing, the day of delivery. And then of course, there's always quite a bit of stuff that we have to do even after the training ends. Now I did, provide a handout down there. I think it's the one called Webinar Training Template. I probably should have named it something else, but that's what we call it in our organization. And you're welcome to download that, if you want to kind of see what our task list looks like. But, one thing I'm always interested in, because I like learning from, different people, and maybe there's something on our task list that I'm missing. And so what I want to do is help everyone participate in a short breakout session. We'll only do it for about 7 minutes. And what I want you to do is whenever you're put into the breakout room, I want you to talk with the other people in your room and share, some of the best practices, like what is it that you do to prepare and plan for virtual trainings in your own organization. So again, get with your group, share all the different tasks that you guys do personally, elect someone to come back and report. So someone will probably want to take notes while you're in the breakout session. And then when we come back, I'm going to ask one person from each breakout room to share that information with me. So make sure you're electing whoever the lucky person is going to be to come back and share. So Wista, if you don't mind going ahead and breaking everyone out into breakout rooms. And we'll give you guys 7 minutes to chat around with each other about that. And I will go ahead and set my timer here so that way I can make sure everyone comes back in time.
Okay, everyone should be in their breakout rooms now. Okay. Hi, Lynn. I just pulled you out of break room 1.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You want to go back to the break room?
No, you can just leave me right here.
Okay.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I'm tracking the time, and I'll just let you know whenever the time is up.
Perfect. Thank you.
If you had me in breakout room 1, I got to tell you, no one was talking. So we'll see. Oh.
It was good practice. I promise we'll get better at it.
Yeah, no worries. I actually don't do breakout rooms. Gosh, I can't tell you the last time I did a breakout room. So it's something I need to start doing more of. It's just so hard.
Yeah, it's a learning curve.
It is. And Awista, before I bring everyone back, I'm just going to tell you I have no idea how long this is going to be. It is always so hard for me to tell how long a webinar is going to be. I tried to guesstimate.
Hey, Lynn. So I just got a message from Teresa. It seems like no one's communicating in the break rooms, and it seems like everyone's under the impression that there's some technical difficulties.
Okay, bring everyone back.
Okay.
Okay. So remember what I said at the beginning that like if keeping the audience engaged and interactive is hard enough, throw in those technical difficulties and then you're sure going to have problems. So I assume that's probably what just happened and that's okay. So whenever, you're training and you have some technical difficulties,
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I realized audio is off. I think Lynn is going through a storm right now. She should be back soon. I do know that she's trying to enter back into the room. I do apologize for the technical difficulties and appreciate all the patience while we try to get her back in the room. Yeah, unfortunately, Lynn did fear that the storm would take out her sound. Once again, I do apologize for the delay. Lynn is currently trying to log back on. I do apologize.
goodness.
Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone, for that delay. Yes, Nancy, unfortunately, that is one of the things that can go wrong, but we've got Lynn back, thankfully.
Yes. Yeah. So would you guys believe if we told you we did all of that on purpose, just so that you could see what kind of technical difficulties can really happen whenever you're doing virtual training? Yeah, I'm sure y'all don't believe that we would do that on purpose. And we didn't. That was a total accident. But it just goes to show you, like, you never know what is going to happen whenever you deliver virtual training. And you know what? When stuff like that happens, don't let it throw you into a tizzy. Don't freak out. Just be calm about it. Do what you can to get reconnected. And you know what? At the worst, at the end of the day, like if we had to do the presentation over again, or even if I had to pre-record it, no big deal. Anyway, we're going to actually talk about some steps that hopefully you'll be able to use to avoid instances like we just happened. So let me see, where was I? Okay, so we went to the breakout rooms. The breakout rooms didn't work. And then the webinar system, like, I guess doesn't like me and said that you've been asked to leave, and it kicked me out. Like, it really told me you have been asked to leave the webinar. That's interesting. I didn't know that was something that was in Adobe Connect. Okay, so forget the breakout exercise. So we're just going to go ahead and move on here and make up this time. Okay, so another crucial component for delivering good training is really mastering the platform for delivery. You know, now, like, I don't know. And Awista was very, upfront with me. She's like, Lynn, we don't ever use the breakout room. I'm going to try my best at it. And it may not be Awista's fault at all. It could be Adobe Connect, because I've used that platform before and it has like weird quirks like that. But definitely, make sure that you're learning everything about the platform that you're going to be using. Because it's really annoying to people, like when things like that happen, or like if you can't do simple things like learn how to flip from one slide to the next, or use all the engagement tools that it has available to help keep your audience engaged in their learning. So if you are using a platform that's managed by your business organization, you're really going to have an advantage. Because you're going to be able to get in there and acquaint yourself with it and explore all of the different tools available. But if you're using a platform that's managed by someone else, which, is the situation that I'm in today, then there's other steps that you may need to take to familiarize yourself with that platform, so you can at least do some of the basic things like switch slides. You can sign up for a free trial of that platform. So that way you have time to, get in there and use it without having to pay. You can watch tutorial videos or even watch recorded webinars that others have done in the platform. And what I would do also is maybe ask your host. I did this before, whenever I was putting the webinar together, I sent an email to Brooke and Awista and asked, like, here's the tools that I want to use. Is this okay? Are those tools available in Adobe Connect? And so just make sure that you're covering all of those bases beforehand, and you should be good to go. Now, something else that you should also do is schedule a test run before the actual event so that you can test out the system to make sure it all works as planned, which we actually did do, and everything was working fine. So, it's not that doing the test runs are going to, ensure everything is going to work correctly, but at least it gives you an opportunity that, if there's something you're not quite understanding, then you have the opportunity and time to go back and kind of learn. All right. Actually, I suggest doing 2 test runs, usually like 1 test run a week or several days before the presentation, especially if you plan to do things like incorporate video or utilize your internet browser. Like, for instance, if I wanted to not use my PowerPoint right now and wanted to share my internet browser so I could share my screen. Those are definitely some things that you're going to want. If you're not comfortable doing it, you're going to want to learn how to do that ahead of time and test it and just make sure everything works. But at the minimum, at least make sure that you're doing at least one test run, like an hour before the webinar starts. And for anyone that's presented with the Native Learning Center, then you know that is definitely something that they have in place. And they always have us log on 1 hour ahead of time to make sure we've got a good connection and everything is working correctly. So when you are using another organization's platform, like I said, just make sure you let them know in advance what tools you plan to use and ask for help getting everything prepared, because they're, obviously you've seen like there's a poll that we already did today, because things like polls will have to be set up in advance. So you'll just want to make sure and communicate what those polls are and any other information that's going to have to be set up into the webinar system beforehand. Okay. I'm going to stop and just take a breath for a minute just to see if anybody has any questions before we move on. And I'm trying to pay attention to the chat, but I know Alyssa is doing a good job at doing that. So, okay, I don't see anything, so we'll just go ahead and keep on going. Yeah, so now we're going to talk about bandwidth conservation. Poor George. I hated to pick on him because I love George Clooney, but like this was just too perfect not to use. So give me a thumbs up or a laugh emoji or something if this has ever happened to you, right? You're presenting a webinar, your connection becomes unstable and your video freezes, capturing a really non-flattering image of you. Like, I cannot be the only one this has happened to. It's happened to me several times. It's always so embarrassing. Awesome. Thank you. Well, unstable internet connections really are the most common technical issue whenever you're doing virtual training. So I'm going to share with you some of the best practices just to help make sure that you're getting most from the connection that you do have. Okay, so here's a list of all the tools that are usually used within a virtual training platform. Now, considering that we need most, or if not all of the tools in our webinar platform, in order to create an engaging training, which one can we alter to save bandwidth? Actually, I'm on the wrong slide. I'm on the right slide, but looked at my notes wrong. So if you will look here, you're going to notice what are those top 3 things that are really sucking up bandwidth whenever we're in a webinar platform. Yeah, I've kind of given you a clue here because it's surrounded by a red box. Screen sharing. So if I were to get out of the PowerPoint presentation and get on my internet browser and share my screen with you, that is going to really suck up the bandwidth. If I had my webcam on, that would also, you can see there how much bandwidth that uses. And for sure, like if you want to share any kind of videos in your training, that is really going to zap things. So I think it's good just to kind of look at all of this and know, oh, like, here's all the different things, and here's, the bandwidth that all of these different things use. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't screen share like your PowerPoint or something else on your desktop. It doesn't mean you can't use a webcam, and it doesn't mean that you can't use video. It just means that you have to be maybe adjust things a little bit and be aware that that you may have to do things just a little bit differently and turn some things off, while you're doing one, etc. So here's where I was a minute ago. Because we do often need all these tools, because I was looking at these tools thinking, well, if I had to get rid of one, which would it be? And I like to use all of them, although I really don't do video screen sharing very often, just because it can be difficult. But one thing I was really surprised about is the webcam. Because I do usually have my webcam on high resolution, and I had no idea that's like the second top highest thing that's sucking bandwidth. And so one thing that you can do is you can actually lower the resolution on your webcam so that way, it's not sucking up so much power. Okay, let's talk about some general tips that you can use to save that bandwidth. And I think this is good tips, whether you're the presenter or you're the participant. Now, some of you may know this, but some of you may not. A wired Ethernet connection is really going to be, generally anyway, faster, more stable, more reliable, and more secure than a Wi-Fi connection. I don't know. It's very uncommon for any of us to be connected to anything using Ethernet, like we all use Wi-Fi. But just know that an Ethernet connection is going to be your best option. And usually, like if you look on your router, you'll see that there is actually a place on your router that you can plug an Ethernet cable into, and then you can plug that into your computer, and that just kind of helps secure everything. Although, there are some times like if your electricity goes out or surges, then you're going to probably lose connection to the webinar. And for that reason, it's really a good idea to use the phone audio or the phone to call in for the audio. And I was actually going to do that today, but Adobe Connect does not have a way for you to use phone audio. So I wasn't able to do that. See, if I had been able to call in and be on the phone, we wouldn't have had that huge disruption that we just had. And that actually happened to me one time. I was delivering a training online. We were having, I think we even had a tornado. We were having terrible storms here in Oklahoma, and I had completely lost power. But I am so thankful because I had prepared ahead of time, and I called in using the phone audio, and I had my slides printed out, and I had a great backup person on there, which Awista is mine today. And so whenever that happened, like I didn't miss a beat. All I had to do, since I wasn't in the webinar at all, I had my slides printed, so I was able to continue on, and then I just would communicate over the phone audio to my my co-trainer there. Hey, could you please switch to the next slide? And so that worked really well. So it's just something that is really good practice for you to do. And I think a lot of times we know technology can go wrong, but we kind of take it for granted. And it's like, oh, I think I'm just going to go ahead and connect using Wi-Fi instead of an Ethernet. Or I'm just going to go ahead and use the VoIP option instead of, calling in on the phone. And I'm just going to tell you, like, you're going to be so thankful in those times if you just take those steps and do it anyway. It's just a fail-safe. Now, every webinar platform is different in regards to the internet speed it requires. So, if you look, thinking back to that table I just showed you, that was actually based on Adobe speeds. And it may be different for a different webinar platform you're using. Like, for instance, my organization uses Zoom. So what you should probably do is look up the recommended speeds for your platform and make sure that you do a speed test at the same time of day that you're going to do your training, because internet speed will actually change throughout the day depending on the usage of others. Not only, people that may be on the same network in your household, but if you're like me and you live out in the country, and you're having to use, they're bouncing the signal off a tower, like in the evening times, my internet speed would drop dramatically when people were home off work and doing things like streaming movies. So that's just another good practice is kind of, test and see, if you're going to have your planning on having your webinar at a certain time of day, if it just happens to be a time of day where where the bandwidth and the speed is just really low, you might want to consider rescheduling that. And give me a thumbs up if you know how to test your internet speed. I'm curious. Because if you don't, I'm just going to tell you real quickly and simply how to do that. Okay, great. Yeah, so if you don't know how to test your internet speed, literally all you need to do is jump onto Google and type in the search bar, test internet speed. And it's going to give you like a whole bunch of different options. And you just, open it up, click a button, and then it's going to tell you, what your speed is, upload and download. So that's just a good thing to do. Now, if you are at home, my family hates it when I do stuff in the evening, if I have to do some kind of class or webinar in the evening, because I kick them off the internet, which means we don't have cable. So that means nobody can watch TV or be, Xboxing or doing all that kind of stuff, because I kick everyone off the internet. Another thing that you should probably do is, make sure you turn off any unnecessary web browsers that might be running in the background on your computer, and ensure that there are no updates running in the background, because again, all of that is going to affect your speed and how well you're coming through to your audience. Now, if you can't connect through the webinar without being connected to the actual room, let me make sure I'm understanding if I'm saying that correctly. Well, let me just say this. One thing I also do is make sure I have a secondary internet connection available. So I even asked or told AWISTA, I said, we've got, it's sunny right now, but we have some rain coming through. And like I mentioned a minute ago, I've been in that situation where a storm has come through, it's knocked the electric out. And so I told her, I said, if that happens for whatever reason, just know that I've got my phone here and I'll use my hotspot and get back on the webinar. So, if you really need to be in the webinar room and you can't continue with just through the phone audio, then just grab your phone, and at least that's a hotspot that is not going to be dependent on whether your electricity is on or not. Okay. Got ahead of myself there again. Now, a moment ago, we looked at just how much a webcam can really suck up your bandwidth. So I'm going to share some tips that will hopefully help you manage that. And the first tip being that you don't always have to broadcast your webcam. So whenever you share videos or other rich media content, don't use a webcam at the same time, because there's no point really in having your face on the screen while all of the participants are trying to focus on a video or some other kind of file that you've shared. So all you need to do is, whenever you're doing that kind of stuff, stop your webcam, and that will open up the bandwidth so you don't have those annoying latency issues whenever you're trying to play a video. You can also just use pictures instead of a webcam. And I understand, like, pictures don't have quite that interactive feel that you want whenever you're doing online training. But when it comes to saving bandwidth, it's really a justifiable option. So sharing pictures requires much less bandwidth than sharing a live stream with your webcam. Now, in the Adobe Connect platform that we're using today, you can upload an image of the presenter ahead of time, which is exactly what AWISTA has done. If you're using another platform such as Zoom, you can't set up rooms like this like you can in Adobe Connect. So you're not going to be able to upload a picture of the presenter. But one thing that you can do is make sure that your account has a profile picture. A lot of times I'll see people that are using Zoom and they haven't added a profile picture to their Zoom account. And so if their camera is off, it's just black, right? It's just that black box, which is kind of annoying. So make sure you at least have a profile picture if you're using Zoom. And I know like for my organization, the Acorn Project, we have a Zoom account. And what we do is we actually use the logo as the profile picture. So in that instance, like if you are having to use your organization's Zoom account, maybe you just ask permission, like, can you change it temporarily just for the training? So that way, whenever your webcam is not on, at least the people that are in your training are seeing a picture of you and not a black box or a picture of your organization's logo. Something that you'll also want to do is just make sure that you change the name to display your personal name. And I know I keep referencing back to Zoom, but that's what we use. And I think that's what, it seems to be what a lot of other people are using too. So just know, like even if you're using your organization's account, like if I open mine up, for the name, it's going to say IDRS Inc. I can actually change that to reflect my name, and that is just a temporary change. So when the training ends, it automatically reverts back to the IDRS Inc. name. Another option, if you're going to lead a screen sharing heavy session, if you're going to be on the internet sharing your web browser, if you're going to be sharing videos, you can also pause your webcam. And that can work well because it allows your speaker or host to quickly start and stop their live broadcast without affecting the continuity of streaming the training. Let me see. Right resolution. Okay. Whenever you are doing web conferencing events, there's, it's a tremendous benefit to have the webcam broadcasting. I personally like to be on camera whenever I'm presenting, and anytime I'm in a training watching someone else, I really like to see them as well. It just makes it a much better experience all the way around. So I really encourage you to use your webcam as often as you can, because having that friendly face whenever you're in that virtual setting really does a lot to humanize the space. So with that said, it's advisable to configure your webcam resolution to reflect the needs of your session and to avoid those bandwidth issues. And I will say this, like whenever you're doing virtual training, hearing the presenter clearly is so much more important than being able to see the presenter clearly. So audio should be the priority whenever you're delivering any kind of online training. Now, I have to tell you that I love sharing videos when I'm training for a variety of reasons. They allow you to share information in a really interesting way. And another thing I love about it is that it provides another voice for the audience to hear. I know for me, sometimes I'm a little self-conscious about my voice because I'm from Oklahoma, and I know I talk like a huge hick, and I always feel like maybe my voice is annoying people. But so I kind of like it whenever I have a co-trainer or have a video or something that just kind of brings another voice into the conversation. And the other thing that it does is it gives me as a presenter kind of a moment just to catch my breath and collect my thoughts again. Because we all know, like, as you're presenting, it's just like, if you don't have those little breaks and pauses, then you just start kind of feeling anxious and you're just like plowing through your information. So that's why I really like doing the videos. But again, the biggest problem is that it takes so much bandwidth to stream video. And I have had numerous video fails when training. Even if I have a great connection and everything is great from my end, the participants can still have problems if their connection is not stable. And so, again, this is really the reason I try not to use video during a virtual training session, especially in our Zoom platform, because I don't have the option in Zoom to like preload a video. But in Adobe Connect, however, you can. And so that's one of the things that we did today, because I have a video here in just a little while I'm going to share with you. And Awista was able to take that video, upload it into the room beforehand, and that really helps make sure that the video is going to play correctly. Now, if your bandwidth is still bad on your end, it still may have some problems, but this is like just one of those things that you can do that hopefully is going to make that work better. And I'm not sure, Awista can tell me if she knows, I'm not sure like if Adobe has a file size limit, but if it does, or you're using another platform that has kind of a limit on the size of the file, video file you can upload, what you may need to do if you have a huge video file is to compress that. And I actually use a tool. I haven't had to do it in a while, but let me see, the tool I use is Handbrake. And if I remember correctly, it's totally free of charge. You get on there and it just takes your video file and compresses it and makes it smaller. So some of you might find that information helpful. Okay, well, so up until now, we've talked a lot about managing the technical side of virtual training, but there is a lot more to adapting your in-person training to the virtual environment. As you revise training to go from in-person to online, there's going to be a lot of adjustments, obviously, that you're going to need to make. And as we discussed at the beginning of the webinar, that largest adjustment is going to be how you're able to use experiential activities and finding alternatives to keeping your participants engaged. And I'll get into that just a little bit more here in a few minutes. So I can show you, I actually want to show you a fun engagement strategy that we use that actually is not part of any of the webinar tools that you're going to find in your webinar platform. But first, I want to share some challenges, or I want you to share some challenges, that you have in adjusting your content for the virtual environment. So I'm going to ask Awista to launch another poll. And after that, we're going to go into a little bit more in depth to discuss how you can overcome some of these challenges. And I do believe like you don't have to choose just one. I think this is one of those where you could check every box if you want to. We still have people taking it. So I'm going to give it just another minute here. Wow, y'all must be putting a lot of thought into this because everything keeps changing. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll because I think this is probably good enough, and I'll broadcast the results to you. So yeah, connecting with the participants and getting them to engage. So that definitely is two of the major challenges that you guys are facing. But as you can see, like all of them, right? I mean, there are so many moving parts to a webinar that all of it can be, really challenging. So thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, Russ, good to see you. Okay. Can you close that poll for me, Awista? Thank you. Okay. So there's a lot of different, I don't know if I say modes, but you may prefer the word methods. There's different ways that you can do virtual training. you can utilize, things like you can do webinars, you can do virtual classes, you can do on-demand training. And while all of them are virtual, each one has different capabilities. And so the mode or method that you use really should depend on the type of information you're sharing and how it affects the participants' ability to learn and retain the knowledge that you're trying to share. Now, webinars are great when you're sharing pretty simple information with a really large number of people. They are the least interactive, right? Because as we can see today, none of you are on video, all of you are muted, and it's helpful, to the presenter because it allows you to get through your content more quickly. But it's, very much a one-sided conversation most of the time. And, I will say this too about webinars, because everyone seems to automatically, like when you talk about virtual training, webinar is what comes to the top of everyone's mind. And so I see sometimes people use webinars where maybe that method is probably not the best for that particular training. And I notice this, especially, when you attend a webinar, to try to teach really hard to grasp concepts, or when you're doing a webinar that extends over a super long period of time. And, like today, I know that, we've already been going an hour and we'll probably, go close to an hour and a half. But I would really suggest that if you're going to do a webinar, try to keep it to 45 minutes worth of content, because it is really difficult for people to stay engaged longer than 45 minutes. So you have to be like that. Whoever in here is our superstar virtual training presenter, you're going to have to be that person if you want to keep people engaged for a really long time. So again, just think about your audience. How many people are there going to be? How much interaction do you want to have? How difficult is the material to learn? And always keeping in mind the amount of time that you expect people to give their attention to you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about live virtual classes. And these are classes, what I consider live virtual classes are those that take place over like several sessions. So it may be, I don't know if anyone in here attended we actually did it in the webinar format, but it was my website development. I usually do that as a live virtual class. And so I'm not sitting down and doing like all of the training at once. I'm spreading it out, whether it's over several days or several weeks. And I have to tell you, like, that is my favorite method of virtual training for several reasons, because one, it allows for so much more interaction. Like, doing a live virtual class is about as close as you're going to get to an in-person experience. The participants are expected to have their cameras on so you can actually see who you're talking to. The participants are not muted, so they have the ability to talk whenever they have questions, which is not only easier for them than, trying to type things in the chat box, but one of the things I love about it is that it really allows an opportunity for me and the participants to have more in-depth discussions. They get to interact with each other, which provides really good opportunities for peer learning and networking. And I find that it's much less stressful because as a presenter, because the overall atmosphere is a lot less formal, and it allows us to be, more informal with each other, more, relational. So I have been able to build some really good relationships with some of my clients who have participated in our virtual training. And it's like, for a lot of these people, maybe I've, had them in class online, like had an online experience or relationship with them, for years. And then I finally get to see them like in person at a live training that actually happened for me this summer. And it's like these people I've been seeing online for the past 3 years. I'm finally there with them in person, and I already know them. And so that's really the power that I love about doing those live virtual classroom sessions. Now, I'll share some of these tips with you if you do decide to use this method of training. There may be times that if you're doing a live virtual class, and let's say it's going to last several sessions, you may want to be choosy about who it is that you're going to let in, because one of the things that I think I have it up there on the slide, is that those are really good for smaller groups. Like, you do not want to have a live virtual class that has like 20 or 30 people in it. That is really difficult. Really, to me, the perfect size of a class is going to be about 12 people. And so I'm usually pretty picky about the people I'm going to allow into that class. Like, we do this class called Etsy Craft Entrepreneurship, and it is a total of 8 hours of training. We do 2 sessions over like 4 days, or maybe we do 1 session a week. So I'm kind of picky sometimes about who we let into that class. And so one of the things that we do is we actually have a pre-application process that we've used just to make sure that we're picking the best people to participate in this class. Like I said, you need to determine the number of sessions and length. I would say for a live virtual class, 2 hours is probably max. And even then, you probably need to plan, a break like after 45 minutes or after an hour, just to kind of let everyone go to the restroom or grab a cup of coffee, whatever it is that they need. And something else I'm going to tell you about doing the live virtual classes is, because it is more interactive, it takes longer to deliver material. Like, if all of you guys were on camera, able to talk, and we were doing this using the live virtual class method, this training would be way longer, right? Because we'd be talking and sharing stories. So you just have to keep that in mind. But that's what I love about this kind of training. And it's so great too. Like, if you have a more difficult topic, it's great. It's a great way, because it allows you and the participant to communicate. So if they're not understanding something, then it's easier for you to help them, to help explain it to them. Another type of training is the on-demand training. And I would say that if you have training that uses a lot of video content, on demand is really the way to go. Because even if you're trying to share a lot of video in a virtual class or webinar, we've talked about the issues that you can have, but really those issues are almost null and void whenever you're doing on-demand training. So some of the things that I like about on-demand, we actually have a course called Business Idea Generation. And that course does contain a lot of video interviews with Native entrepreneurs. If we didn't have those videos of those Native entrepreneurs, the training would be, it would still be okay. I mean, people would learn. But to me, it is those videos and letting people hear the stories from those Native entrepreneurs that make the training so great. So we actually turn that class into an on-demand training using a system called Thinkific. Does anyone know what Thinkific is? Just raise your hand or something if you've ever heard of that. And maybe even some of you might have probably taken some classes that are on demand, like through Udemy, or what was that one? I used to take a lot of classes through the library. It was lynda.com or something. I think they're actually different now, because LinkedIn, I think, bought them. But what happens in an on-demand training is that the user is able to go at their own pace. So it's not a training like this where I'm explaining something, and if you didn't hear me or if you didn't understand, well, too bad, because we've already moved on. So at least, like if you do have topics that are really hard concepts, maybe if it's something like math based, because I actually took a break even webinar that I do and made it an on-demand online training. So because people are just uncomfortable with math, and so I want them to be able to go through that at their own pace. Now, it is like the interaction is basically not there, right? Because you're not on there as the presenter. I mean, people are watching recorded video or whatever. But do remember that if you're doing this kind of training, that people do need to be able to reach out to you. So like for our on-demand training, they are able to contact me if they're going through it and they're like, Lynn, I just don't understand, this break-even formula. I've watched the video over and over. I've tried working through it. I just can't get it. Then I want them to be able to reach out to me so I can work with them one-on-one. And so that's really what you get is it's, hey, here's this training, go out, learn what you can. And if you run into trouble, I'm here as a backup to meet with you. And group size doesn't matter, right? So you could have one person taking that on-demand training, or you could have 100 people. It doesn't matter. So great for maneuvering around that group size. Okay. So one of the challenges that we saw in that poll is getting people to engage with you whenever you're in a virtual training. And it's always going to be challenging. But there are tools built into the platform that you can use to help keep participants engaged. So today I've used several of these tools, right? I've asked you to respond in the chat. I've used polls. I've asked you to do things like give me a thumbs up or raise your hand. And I even attempted to do a breakout session, even though that didn't work. So, it's uncomfortable. And you're probably like, yeah, I'm afraid that would happen to me, that I would use a breakout room and this would happen, what happened today. And those things are going to happen. But, I say that these webinar platforms are becoming more powerful all the time. And they're getting better at trying to create ways that you can engage your audience. And so just use those. And it doesn't have to be any major big thing, right? Like I've asked some pretty simple questions, and just said, hey, raise your hand if you agree. Or so it's pretty easy to incorporate that kind of stuff, no matter what your topic is. But you're not stuck to only using the platform tools for engagement. So we actually have I'm sure everyone has heard the term SMART goals. And we actually have a game called Smarties, and it's to help people learn about SMART goals. And we love doing that Smarties game whenever we're doing live training. And the basic objective of the game is to set a goal for how many Smartie, those little candies, you know what I'm talking about, those little Smartie candies that come in a roll that have been around forever. So the goal is to set a goal like how many Smartie candies do you think you can stack? And the person that comes closest to their goal wins. Well, when we're teaching online, we can't pass out Smarties through the computer. So one thing that we've figured out we could do is we can just ask participants to go grab a handful of pennies and use those to stack, because we all usually have a spare change laying around. So we have done that, and it's actually been successful, and people like it. It's pretty fun. Now, if we're doing something like maybe a virtual youth training where we know who the participants are ahead of time, we know how many they're going to be, maybe there's, a person at the tribe that's coordinating the training, then we have been known to actually mail the Smarties candies out ahead of the training so that everyone has that whenever we get ready to do the exercise online. Now, another engagement strategy we use is to draw for prizes. So if any of you have who's been to one of our webinars at IDRS? or classes, you can raise your hand if you want to. One of the things that we like to do is we like to give prizes away. And so usually it's like, oh, a $10 Amazon gift card or something. Sometimes we'll give a prize away, like if someone wins the Smarties game, they get a prize. But sometimes we will just like randomly draw a name from somebody that's, one of the participants and just give out a gift card. So one of the ways that one of the tools that we use to do that is called Wheel of Names. Anyone not heard of Wheel of Names? Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen it used, several times, but you know what? It's like, so I know that, several of you have probably used it, but if you haven't, just know it's like a super easy way, tool to use if you want to do some kind of drawing. So Awista, can you go ahead? That's the video that I want to share with you guys. It's just a couple minutes long. And so that way you can just learn how you might, just how easy it is to use the Wheel of Names, and you can incorporate that into your training to do some kind of fun giveaway.
Hi guys, it's Technology Laura, and today's tech tool is wheelofnames.com. So I want to show you how you can add all of your students' names into this spinning wheel. So I will use a fake class list of Disney characters. So I will type all of their names. I also will add a free choice, and that will include my name as well, so I'm part of the questioning. So once you add all of your students' names, you're going to go ahead and save, because that's important. So you can save as random name generator, and then you can customize this as well if you want to use different backgrounds, different colors, the sound, if you want it to have no sound, whatever you like. The spin times to actually make it a little bit shorter, just to quicken up the time between each spin. Okay, so if we have all of this, we go ahead and click on full screen, and then you click to spin. And so this is the time when you would be asking your question. Question 1, Donald. Question 2, Pluto. And that's how you can integrate Wheel of Names. I think some great ideas would be to add your class roster, get to know you games, math facts. I see this used across all content levels and grade levels. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like and subscribe for additional EdTech tips and tools. Thank you.
Okay. So Dottie, I see that you're asking about the app for the Wheel of Fortune. Are you meaning the wheel that I just showed you, or so it's just called Wheel of Names. So it's actually just in a web browser. So if you just type Wheel of Names into Google search, it's going to take you directly there. So if you are using that, like what I suggest you do is upload your participant names ahead of time, like before the training. But, sometimes in a case like this, I had no idea who was going to be in the training. And so I couldn't actually do it. I wish I could have actually put all of you in there, and I would have given somebody a prize to demonstrate, but I just didn't have that luxury, which is why we watched the video. But if, one thing you can do in that instance, if you have a backup person, and I felt like I had asked enough of Awista, I wasn't going to ask her to do this too. But if it was one of IDRS's trainings, then I would ask one of my coworkers, hey, while I'm in the training, doing the webinar, can you please go onto the Wheel of Names website and enter everybody's name in? So just, man, that is probably another great tip I just want to share with you guys. If you are doing virtual training, never, ever do it totally by yourself. Always have somebody online with you that can kind of run the technical aspects of things. It's always so important. Okay. So that is kind of the end of the engagement. And I'm kind of curious, was there anybody that had problems with the latency of the video? Did it play okay for everyone? Because that's another reason why I wanted to just stick the video in there and just show you that, I mentioned earlier that if you are going to do video, if the platform allows, you should upload it into the platform ahead of time, which is what Awista did. And yeah, so you can see all of us are saying, yes, it played well, it played great. So just wanted to demonstrate that is another reason why we threw the video in there. Okay. Okay, guys, we're almost to the end here, so just hang with me. Now, one of the challenges that you have identified, in making the virtual transition is probably enough time to get through all the material, right? I know that was, one of the challenges in the poll that we did that people said that they had, and it is challenging. One of the challenges is, like I told Awista, I have no idea how long my training is going to last today because this is the first time I've delivered it like this. And so it's always hard to gauge how long it's going to take me. But here are some of the strategies that I have used in the past. If you have a lot of material to cover and you are really afraid that you're just not going to be able to do it in the amount of time that you have, these are some things that you can do. One, I call it chunk it and blend it. It always makes me think if I'm making a training smoothie, I'm going to chunk it and blend it. In an in-person training, somebody like the presenter or a lecturer might go over several topics in one session, and that might work in person. But whenever you're doing online training, really the shorter the content is, the better. So if you have a presentation that you usually do, consider chunking your content up into smaller pieces and delivering it more as like a module, one topic at a time. For example, we deliver this training on understanding how to manage the final aspects of your business. And if we do this training in person, we can do it all in one session. It's no problem. But there is absolutely no way that we can sufficiently cover that amount of material in a 1-hour webinar. So we've really had to revise the training and chunk it up into a series of webinars where we focus on just, one of the 4 major financial aspects at a time. And so that's a great way to do it, because you don't need to keep everyone for 3 hours trying to pound a lot of information into their head. So the blend it, that was actually the chunk it, the blend it part. The learning, it doesn't only happen in the classroom, whether it's live or virtual. I certainly learned that, as I know many of you did whenever you're in college, right? You show up to class, and what happens in class, it's usually the professor talking about whatever it is that they want to talk about. And then all the homework is saved for when you go home. So you're not ever in a college classroom really doing any of the work. So anyway, so just know that it's okay to take some of that learning out of the virtual area and have people do it on their own outside of class. So you can provide them, maybe there's videos that you want them to listen to or watch, or there's podcasts that people might want to listen to. So, if you're doing something, especially like a longer training, you can do things like send that to the participants ahead of time or give it to them afterwards. You can provide them with reading assignments. I know, like, giving people a copy of the PowerPoint presentation is probably, one of the main ways that we nowadays share information, with people so that they can have it after the training. And that's fine. But, the thing is that PowerPoint does not always contain all the information that you went over in the live training. And so you may have to do some different things. For instance, I think I mentioned that website development class that I did for NLC several months ago. And in that webinar, it was a 4-session webinar, And I was using a lot of tools like Canva, showing people how to create a logo in Canva and doing a lot of technical stuff. And I knew that, me just showing everyone how to do this in a webinar session, it's not going to click with everyone. So what I did is I actually went and created videos. Here's a video walking you through every step of how to create a logo in Canva. Here is a video of how what are some other things that I did? Anyway, I did like 5 different how-to videos. And what I did was I provided links to those videos to everyone that attended the class. So yes, although I went through the information in the webinar, I also provided it as like video tutorials that people could go back to and review anytime that they wanted. So there is different ways that you can revise your training material so that you're not having to try to cram it all into a 45-minute or 1-hour session. Any questions up to this point? Because I've got like 2 slides left. Okay, and then I'll open it up for questions at the very end too. So quickly, I'm just going to move through this real quickly. If you are an organization or a small business and you're utilizing online training to connect with clients, connect with customers, it's really hard to recruit people, right? And so I'm just going to share with you really quickly some of the things that we do. Always when we have a training, we send it out to our email list. Not only do we send it out to our email list, but we also utilize social media. Facebook in particular, because we have just found that the communities that we work with in Indian country, almost everyone, uses Facebook. So we'll actually create Facebook ads and put money behind those. And that is honestly changed the game for us by doing the Facebook ads for any of the trainings that we have. We also utilize partners. Like don't go at anything alone. This is something that has always drove me nuts when I was in higher education, because other institutions like the tech centers would want to partner or something. And it's like everyone is in their silo. They're afraid that, this organization's going to steal our clients, or, it's like we have a habit of doing that, right? Like we don't want to share the glory with other people. But I have found that utilizing partners is an awesome way to recruit additional people to your training. Last year, we did an entire webinar series in partnership with the United States Patent and Trademark Office and the Indian Arts and Crafts Board. And it was awesome because all of us were marketing the training. And I think that very first training, for some reason, the very first one sticks in my mind. I think we had over 300 people in that training. Anyway, it was great. But a lot of times people sign up for webinars. I'm guilty of this. I sign up for them and I never attend. Sometimes it's because something's happened in my schedule and like I can't take the time to join the webinar. Then I would say 80% of the time I don't attend because I just forget. Like I can get up in the morning, look at my calendar, go, oh, okay, I have a webinar that I want to go to at 2:00 this afternoon. Maybe I even got an email reminder. Let me tell you, I am one of those people that I've got a gazillion things going on and I will forget. So one of the things that we do at IDRS is not only do we make sure our system is sending out email reminders a day before and an hour before, but I also go through the extra step of sending text reminders to everyone an hour before our webinars start. Because, some of the times I've missed a webinar is, yes, I may have gotten the email an hour before, but I might be out to lunch with a friend. I'm not paying attention to my email. But if I get a text on my phone, I can guarantee you I'm going to look at it. And that has improved the attendance to our webinars tenfold. Like like usually, you know, before we were doing that, we would have a webinar and there might be like 10 people. And I'll tell you that hardly ever do we have a webinar now where we have under 25 participants. And it's because I know it's because we do the text reminders. And people always say that they're so thankful for that. Okay. So that is actually, well, no, there is one more thing here. Awista, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to launch a quiz. I have just a little quiz here for you. Again, not only to kind of test your knowledge about what you learned, but just to show you that this is, again, one of those interactive tools that you could use in your training. So I'm going to give everyone a minute here to go ahead and take this really short quiz. And Dawn, I see you down there. I see it in the chat. So I'll get to you here in just a second. Come on, guys. I've got to have more than 2 of you. There we go. There's 3. All right. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, Kara. Okay, just a couple more seconds, and then I'm going to close it. Terrence, you were the first one to complete. Hey, Awista, is there a way for me to get Terrence's his email address? Because I want to send him a gift card.
Absolutely. I will make sure to send it to you.
All right. So yay, Terrence. You're going to get a $10 Amazon gift card from me. So expect that in your email. See how fun that is? You know, just to be able to give something away to somebody. All right. Well, thank you guys. I'm going to close that quiz now. I don't know that it that in the system it lets you see the results. So I'm not sure that you guys can see the results. Can you see the results? I'm curious, and Awista is probably curious too.
I just made it public.
Oh, okay.
I can. Yay.
All right, good deal. All right. Well, guys, that's the end of the presentation. So now I'm going to turn my camera back on here. Oh, thank you, Awista. Share. Okay. All right, great. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Well, here I am. I'm back. So let me see. Let me look at the chat here because I know that somebody had a question here.
Did you want me to read the question to you, Lynn?
Yeah, if you can, that'll help me.
Yeah. So Dawn wants to know. Dawn says, "Thanks for your presentation. I'm curious about best practices around getting participant survey feedback."
Yeah, you know, Awista, like I think you guys do a really great job at this because at the end of this presentation, like everyone is going to be asked, sorry, my camera's like slipping. Everyone's going to be asked to complete the survey. So that's one of the good things about Adobe, right? And she actually, I think, has the survey like embedded in the room here, which you're going to be able to click and take. But almost all of these webinar platforms, even like Zoom, you'll notice, and when you're in the back end and you're setting up your webinar, that it will say it'll say emails, and if you click that, it gives you the option to, like, do you want to send a reminder a week ahead, a day ahead, an hour ahead? Do you want to send a follow email? And so what we just recently did, because I have to tell you, like, sending the surveys out after our webinars, it just didn't happen most of the time because I would get busy and I would forget. So one of the things that I just recently done, I can't tell you how well it's going to work yet because we just started last week. I created a Google form that we will use for all of our webinar evaluations. So instead of creating a new evaluation for each webinar, I just send out a link to that one Google form. I hope that makes sense. And so I have actually taken that link and put it into the Zoom system so that one day after, I wish they did it like 2 hours after the webinar ended, but one day after the webinar ends, everyone who attended is going to get a follow-up email, and it will have a link to our Google form survey there where we can hopefully start getting more feedback from our participants. And if anyone else has the best practice, in regards to collecting survey information and encouraging people to fill those out, if you raise your hand, I think I can have Awista unmute you and you can share with us. Okay. Was there any other questions, Awista?
No other questions that I saw.
Okay. Well, if everyone is walking away with at least one new tip that you can utilize to help your training better, can you give me, I don't know, a hand clap, a thumbs up, raise your hand, just something to let me know that, you found some value in the presentation today. And I just want to say too that, at IDRS, I truly do mean this. Like, if any of you want to contact me, maybe you have a presentation that you're getting ready to do and you're just thinking, oh, Lynn, I don't know how I'm going to make it interactive. Like, I am happy to sit down with you, go through your presentation, help you brainstorm maybe what kind of polls, you can have, or, some other ways that you can include some interactive stuff into your presentation. So I love doing that for people. And I've actually done it for several organizations. So Dawn, yes. Okay. So Awista, should I put my email in the chat, or is there like another way that they're gonna, okay.
I went ahead and already put your email in the chat.
I see that.
If anybody does want to request your email or wants to reach out to us, I'd be more than happy to connect them with you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would truly love the opportunity to help anybody that I can.
And I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the way it was so I can go ahead and launch that survey for everybody.
Okay.
Like Lynn said, on Adobe, the great part about the feedback is that I can embed it and I'm able to launch it so it pops up on everyone's screen. And personally, I found that to be a great way of people responding to our feedback, because it opens up right in front of your web page, and it's a lot easier to just go ahead and click real quick than to exit out. So I do appreciate everyone who does fill out our feedback, and I find this method works best for us. I also want to thank all our participants for your patience and kindness during the technical difficulties, and thank you for being patient while I work through getting Lynn back on. So greatly appreciate everyone for joining us today. And Lynn, you did an incredible job. To the Native Learning Center, you are absolutely a webinar rock star, a virtual training rock star. And we have more of Lynn's webinars on our website, and you can watch any of her recorded webinars. And if you're curious to know what Lynn has done, please send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to send you the recorded webinars that she has done, so you can go ahead and watch those. Our next webinar is going to be September 13th. It's going to be how to avoid scams and stay safe online. It will be presented by Alvaro Pugh. He is the Consumer Education Specialist for the Division of Consumers and Business Education for the Federal Trade Commission. As always, registration is free. It will be at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 12 p.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Pacific, and 10 a.m. Alaska. Like I mentioned before, you can access any of our recorded webinars on our website at www.nativelearningcenter.com. They are on our website for up to 2 years. Like I said, if you want to find any of Lynn's recordings and you're having trouble finding them, please let me know, and I'd be more than happy to send you the links. Check out our upcoming events on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. We also have a podcast called Hope a Thing, a Native American Podcast. You can find that on Simplecast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Once again, thank you everybody for joining today's webinar. Thank you for your patience, and thank you, Lynn, for an incredible webinar. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Wado Wista, it's always a pleasure being with you guys. All right, have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.